Bound by Fate, Exploring Irish Indentured Servantry. My statement is to inform on the tragedies the Irish has suffered and to inform our country on how to be more open-minded. So to start off with, why do people think the Irish were slaves? First off, people confuse indentured servantry and slavery. People think that history is different than what it is and just confuse the entire thing. Next is Irish servants versus African slaves. The Irish servants were considered human under the law. They went into a deal with the owner to not be paid and to live on the land or work for them. Africans were seen as property. You had to pay good money for them and do what you want after that. As our country is going through a difficult time, it is important that we remember all of history and not just part of it. History is important to remember. The remembrance of history will bring about change to our world. We will begin by discussing the first topic. People think that Irish servantry and African slavery were two completely different things. The terms have two completely different meanings. An indentured servitude is a form of labor in which a person is contracted to work without salary for a specific number of years. Slavery is the ownership of a person as property, especially in regarding to their labor. We like to think as a people that demeaning another group's history makes ours better or more meaningful. This is so far from the truth. Trying to debunk one's history does not make another group's more powerful. It just makes you look unintelligent. Why would we degrade history when we could simply come together and put that in our past? Why would we continue talking about the wrong things and begging for attention when we could just come together and not repeat history? For the second half of the 17th century, indentured servants and enslaved Africans lived, worked, and interacted on the same plantations. The first recorded sale of Irish slaves was to a settlement on the Amazon River in 1612. Stated in the book called To Hell or Barbados, the Irish were slaves for a good amount of time. In 1637, the Irish became the largest source of slaves for English slave traders. From 1625, the Irish were sold with one purpose: to be used in whatever way possible. There were no indentured agreements, no protection, and no choice. They were captured and turned over to shippers to be sold. Discussing racism has been a problem in our society. To put it simply, we're at a point where we cannot have simple dialogue anymore. Opinions can be racist, and people are getting canceled for saying what is on their mind. To argue my standpoint, I want to demonstrate this. Say you spent $200,000 on a Lamborghini, and you also buy yourself a $5,000 Buick. Which one are you going to treat nicer? The Lamborghini. Africans were not cheap. Africans cost a lot of money, and Irish slaves became of such an abundance that they were super cheap. You could get an Irish person easily. History has taught us that the majority is typically in the wrong. It is the same situation here. Most people want to cry and whine about what they have endured, and they strive for compensation for something that their ancestors suffered. And I find that crazy. I understand that people have suffered, and what they went through should not be forgotten. Still, it is important that we as a people will be able to talk about these kind of things without getting upset. And it is just as important to try and find common ground in an argument instead of yelling. Some of the ways I've found that we can normalize open dialogue in our country, the first way I found is to get rid of cancel culture. Cancel culture is toxic, and we do not need that in our country. It is the mass withdrawal of support from public figures or celebrities who have done things that are not accepted today. Canceling people for what they have done in the past is wrong. We all make mistakes, we're human. Now, I'm not saying people who murder or rape shouldn't be punished, but people who say a dumb word or do something stupid when they were a kid, I don't think they should be canceled for that. Another easy way I can think about normalizing discussions is being more open-minded. A big problem that we deal with is not being open-minded. If we would simply be willing to listen and willing to change, then we could have better conversations. Discussions would not be run from. People would be running to discussions to learn more and further their knowledge. Not being able to have open dialogue is a major problem in our country. Watch this video and follow along with more work of other authors. Find a reason to be more open-minded and have a simple dialogue with other human beings. That is my speech.